looking for a sign, reaching out with both hands. I gotta feel the kick inside. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire! Hey! Ain't nobody living in a perfect world. Everybody's out there crying to be heard. But I got a new fire burning my heart, lighting up the darkness and moving like a meteorite. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire! Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire! Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith.
All right, welcome to ReneMarie Stokola. I'm ReneMarie, and it has been a challenging 2020, if I must say so myself, between the coronavirus and the storm that just came through. It's like, what else is going to happen to the world? You know, it's been very challenging and very heartfelt to a lot of people, and I'm sure our guests today feel the same way. Dr. Roxanne and Dr. Mike. My sister was doing a show. My sister was actually watching a show about vitamin D that they were both on. And they were talking about soil and the earth and really how things grow and how they should grow, and their knowledge and their wisdom was so inspiring that my sister said, oh, you should do a show on that. So of course, Judy booked it, and here we are. And of course, Judy, I feel my heart goes out to Judy because she doesn't have power. So she could be on the show, and she did so much work to research because this is new to both of us. You know, my sister is very educated on that world, the earth and the soil and what should grow. And of course, Dr. Roxanne and Dr. Mike are very educated. So this is going to be a very, very interesting show. We actually have a 2-hour slot. I think we're going to run between an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, so that I could share some love, because we need to uplift everybody and bring a little joy through music, and that's what this show is. And I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to bring that to you. So thank you, Jim, for being here. Can they see you?
No, Renee, I have I have your logo over me.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Jim. Anyway,
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
And I'm glad you have power.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Roxanne and Dr. Mike, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a challenge getting here, right?
Thanks for having us on. Yes, it's life has been a challenge as of late, but we either have two choices: either meet the challenge or not.
That's
and
right.
Is the only option.
That's right. So,
Yeah,
Dr. Roxanne,
little power outage. No computer, no internet. So I'm in my office. I'm very happy. I love my office.
So, I mean, I just want to go to what's happening now, and then I'll actually formally introduce you to what you've been doing and who you are, and for our new viewers. But I really just wanted to ask, like, Dr. Roxanne, you don't have power at home, am I correct? Because of this storm?
I have power. We got after 24 hours, but computer, internet, TV, the lines are still down right outside our neighborhood.
Wow. And it's scary because there's a lot of loose wires, and they can't get to them fast enough. And it's not their fault. This was a big storm, bigger than like, it was only for a few hours, right?
Yeah.
It was only lasted about 5 hours approximately. And then the sun came out, and we need a lot of sun.
True.
So Dr. Mike, what happened with you? You have power?
I lost power in my office for 2.5 days, but I never lost power at home. And now everything's back up and running.
And your office is close to your home. That's very odd that
Yes.
you didn't lose power.
0.8 of a mile. And it was strange with Ramsey, the town I'm in. Part of Ramsey had power and part did not.
Wow.
But we got a whole house generator at home after Sandy. And we really haven't had to use it since, luckily. But it's there just in case.
Wow.
Those are great because they kick on, it's like 25 seconds after the power goes off. They automatically kick on with natural gas, and then they turn off as soon as the power goes back on.
Oh, wow.
They're great.
That's
But they run around
intense.
10 grand, so that part's not that great. But
That was for you, Dr. Mike? I'm sorry, I missed that.
about $10,000 it runs, the whole installation and everything.
Wow. That's incredible. But if you live in an area like my daughter does, she lives in Wanacue, New Jersey, and it's kind of an odd place. It's almost close to it, but it's almost in the sticks. She's only 25 minutes from me, but she's in the Indian Hills, area where the reservations used to be. So she's surrounded by mountains. So, that's why hers took longer than everybody else's, because it was pretty intense to get it.
Yes.
Get it. So let me introduce Dr. Roxanne. She is a board certified anti-aging regenerative medicine. She does, right? You do regenerative medicine. She has been practicing preventative medicine on Long Island for over 30 years, which is incredible because you don't look a day over.
Thank you.
Really, you, and that's a fortitude to what you do. That's a fortitude to what you do. You practice what you preach, and you're a shining example of it. You do.
Thank you. Thank you.
As an anti-aging physician, she corrects nutritional and hormonal imbalances, checks for genetic influences and toxin in the body, and corrects and uses natural modalities. I'm sorry, modalities. What are modalities, Dr. Roxanne?
So just everything. Instead of using medication, food first, which we'll talk about today, from the soil, from the earth, the minerals and things like that. And then hormones, like natural hormone intervention.
Right. That's really important. Let me finish, and then we'll let you share a little bit. It is all about getting you healthy naturally, which is what this show is all about, the earth. And I do want to say that
I really think it's a perfect time to speak about that because even though that storm came through, we don't want to forget that the coronavirus is still with us. And we really need to always remember the lessons that we learned from coronavirus. And one of the lessons is really to take us back to balance and to nature and to really the way things used to be. With slowing down and enjoying the moments and going to the soil and going to the basis. I mean, I really believe that from my heart and soul that is what one of the lessons, because there's many, many lessons to be learned from here. And individually, we have to learn our own lessons, but I really believe that that's one of the lessons. So it is a perfect timing for this show. She is also an international speaker on women's health and has recently appeared, and we saw her on Channel 2, Channel 12, and Lifetime TV in reference to preventing the spread of coronavirus and how to increase the immune system. So, that it's really an important piece.
Dr. Roxanne, I mean, how have you shared on Channel 2, 12, and Lifetime about increasing the immune system, which I know we spoke about with Dr. Mike on the last show? Vitamin D was an important piece of that. So share with us.
Yeah, so I'm happy to say that they did release the study on vitamin C and the decreased incidences of the CoV-2 virus if your vitamin D level is above 50. Now, that's been known for many viruses, such as the H1N1 virus and influenza. So it's nice to see that finally they're looking at things like that. Also, vitamin C and how vitamin C increases the immune system. Zinc, as it works as an antiviral. So these are all things that when I went on Facebook and I educate my patients, I have Dr. Roxanne Carfora on Facebook, and every week we do a snippet just for educational purposes for patients. It's less than 1 minute. And it's just, packed with information. And it got out there, and Channel 2 called me in reference to how I showed how it spread. So I did a video using what's called the gum seed and had my my medical assistant sneeze and then spray this all over the office.
Wow.
And we put it on cups, we put it on keyboards, we put it on the phone. So you can see big virons hanging out to say, this is how it spreads. It's very easily spread. So therefore, you must, use your mask always to prevent the spread. So, it got attention, which was great. It's all about education.
Yeah, it is all about education, and you do it very well. And I believe those snippets are really important because people do not engage in long shows like this. What I love to do this show is because we have the basis and the foundation of the show, and then when you're watching over YouTube or over Facebook, you can always zoom to the part you want to watch, and I clip it and I snip it. So it's really important to snip it because people don't have the time to really sit and watch a program for a long period of time, so that's those snippets really work. And I follow you all the time. I follow you all the time. You're very welcome. And I don't know if you can see that I share a lot. I shared it yesterday, I think. I forget was yesterday's or the day before. And your Monday Meatless Mondays, I follow those as well.
Thank you.
Monday Meatless Mondays. So let's go to Dr. Mike. Let's formally introduce Dr. Mike. Let's talk about Dr. Mike and what he brings to the table, which I don't have enough time to share everything, but I'm going to share a little bit. Dr. Mike Evangel, Chiropractor Wellness Center, which I am your patient, Dr. Mike, and I did buy vitamin D and zinc from you. So Dr. Roxanne, you'll be very happy that I have both those items in my cabinet. His goal is not only to get patients out of pain, but to help them achieve the highest level of health possibility. His practice specializes in treating a variety of conditions from clinical nutrition to chronic low back, neck, and pain to rehabilitation following an accident or injury. Dr. Mike also is the host of Holistic Charged, the Super Mike Show, boldly unpacked topics on health that mainstream media often shies away from. And that's what I love about both of you, because you both speak your truth in a way that just educates people. It's not about putting anybody else down. It's really about just speaking truths about what you have found and you've learned in your doctor practices. Like you said, Dr. Roxanne, you did an example with the sneezing, and that showed people, you know, exactly what we're talking about with the masks and stuff. It's very, very well. Hosted by Dr. Mike, AKA Super Mike. You're Super Mike now. Yes.
Well, I got on some Clark Kent today.
Yes. You gotta put your cape on. Hold on one second. I'm almost done. This riveting talk show focuses on bringing you the transparent truth, not only on health, but wellness, fitness, and nutrition. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Mike. Tell us a little bit about, you know, your practice.
Well, the basic thing I always try to strive for with my patients is that nothing happens in the human body by accident, and everything has a purpose because God designed us. Because I have an extreme faith, although I'm not a very religious person.
Yes,
Because
I understand that.
But God made people in His or her image, and made us to function perfectly, but only when having the correct set of circumstances. We've talked about this before, and because of excesses or deficiencies, we do not reach the point of maximum health potential. And you have to have a homeostatic balance where, it's right in that, happy zone, not too hot, not too cold, just the right, as the Italians say. I'm not even sure if that's politically correct to imitate Italians now. But I've got some Italian DNA in me, so I guess it's all right.
I'll give you the okay because I'm Italian. You're busting me, so.
But that's another thing that really bothers me as far as, sometimes the truth is not politically correct, but the truth is the truth. And there is only one truth. We talk about this on my show too, but we have to cut through the misinformation and get to the truth. And a lot of times, fake news is out there, and sometimes what they say is fake news is real news, and what they say is real news is actually fake. So there's a lot of different agendas, and as the old saying goes, follow the money, because unfortunately money is what drives, a lot of corporations not necessarily doing what's the best thing for humanity. And two of my goals personally is to try to save humanity from extinction, because we're on our way to extinction, and to save the planet from the ravages of humanity, because we're not respecting the planet. And those are the two greatest gifts God gave us, the human body and the planet Earth. Speaking of which, planet Earth, we're going to talk about the soil and how that's so unique today. And this doesn't happen by chance. It's not just haphazard. It was designed, divinely.
So lead us into that, Dr. Mike. Lead us into the talk about soil and how you feel, and I'm sure Dr. Roxanne as well feels, but she'll talk in a little bit about the what they do to the soil, how they grow how you should grow your own, the toxicity of pesticides,
right,
the bacteria in the soil. These are all the things that you shared with me because we were communicating on topics that we should talk about.
Well, the soil is really, the earth is really a living organism, as just like we have different cells in our body that form tissues, that form organs, that form organ systems, that form, an entity, a person. You have, not just look at one little tiny thing. You have to look at, the entire ecosystem and what's going on, not just, the bacteria in like a square inch of soil. But it's extremely important to have the proper nutrients, just like, we are only healthy when we don't have excesses and deficiencies. The soil is only healthy when it doesn't have excesses or deficiencies. But, different crops, and Dr. Roxanne and I were talking a little bit about this before the show started, different crops grow better in different types of soil. And I know that Judy had sent out some information about all the different types of soil, but what happens is that we have to figure out when we're growing things, the type of soil we have, or try to modify our soil to make it better for what we want to grow. Because a lot of things you can do to, change the type of soil you have by adding different things. People add, lime, replacing a lot of lime. People even by where you are, by Goffel Farms with the chicken farms, people go there a lot of times to get the chicken manure.
Right.
Manure is very good fertilizer, but then you have to mix it in because it's too acidic. You have to mix it in with some lime and let it age. And, they get into the whole thing about, composting too, like, not to waste things. And, we should always try to repurpose, recycle, reuse things and not just, throw things in the garbage, because we know that things end up in the ocean. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is horrendous, the size of Texas. And there's machines now that they're having in the ocean to recycle the plastic, because it's horrific what's happening to the wildlife. But anyway, I'll be quiet now for a couple of minutes and let somebody else speak.
Well, one of the things that I got from what Dr. Mike said, and I'm pretty basic, and one of the things that I got from what Dr. Mike said was that the soil is alive. I never thought as a soil being alive, like a tree. Like, you don't think that a tree is alive. You know it grows, you can with the water and stuff like that. But the fact that it's alive and got particles, and it's another living earthly plant, or piece of the earth, and I guess to me it's like we should honor that. We should respect that. We should respect it is the best word, when we're planting or we're doing. So Dr. Roxanne, how do you feel about what Dr. Mike was talking about?
Yeah, so to me, the soil is life, and it is what gives us life. And in our gut, everyone talks about probiotic and bacterium. The way we feed that bacterium is through fruits and vegetables. And the way we get our fruits and vegetables is through growing them. And it really does depend upon the farming of the fruits and vegetables, in this country and other countries, because a lot of our fruits and vegetables come from other countries as well. So we were talking about soil before the show, and I was telling Dr. Mike that my soil in my yard is clay. I mean, clay is so hard to grow things in. It's like a very alkaline soil. It's very hard. You can't get deep roots. So for me, I started a hydroponic garden where it's soilless. So that's like another thing that we could talk about in farming. There's all different types of farming, and it depends upon where you live and what you're growing. So, pH balance, you have acid and you have alkaline. So it's a pH of 1 to 14, let's say. So our body also has a pH, just like plants, vegetables, fruits, things like that. And the fruits and vegetables and flowers grow in different types of soil, different pH soil. So it was interesting because when you had asked to do the show, I said, oh boy, that's all I know is soilless gardening, just hydroponic. And that's how I grow some of the things like lettuce, easy things you could do with hydroponic gardening. And the rest I do buy in the store, and I do the best I can. I bought this sunflower, this beautiful sunflower, believe it or not, in Stop and Shop. Yes, wow. Look how beautiful that is. And to grow a sunflower, it needs a certain type of soil. So when looking into the pH and the different types of soiling, Dr. Mike said to me before, the loamy soil is the best to grow in. And I was like, what's loamy? How do I get loamy? That's all I know is clay. So it's pretty interesting.
Dr. Mike, what is loamy soil?
Well, loamy soil is considered by a lot of farmers to be the best general soil for growing most crops. It's 40% sand, 40% silt, and 20% clay. So you can add in, silt and add in sand to clay to make it more loamy. But silt a lot of times comes from the lake beds, ancient lakes, and you had all that sediment forming down in the bottom of the lake. But with clay retains moisture, and lettuce, chard, snap beans, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage are good for clay, and they really can anchor the roots in well. And then you have sandy soil, which is more of a vegetable root crop like carrots, potatoes, But then also lettuce, strawberries, peppers, corn, squash can grow in more sandy soil, collard greens, tomatoes. And as a matter of fact, I used to live in Paramus, New Jersey. And Paramus is pretty close to you also. And it was interesting because I had done some research because there was a big controversy around one of the middle schools over there because they found all pesticides around the middle school, but it was from digging up the foundation soil, the pesticides. That's what it was from. It wasn't like in the farmland because they're saying that, you know, it used to be considered one of the celery capitals because half of the town was more of a silty lake bed and the other half is more, you know, different soil for growing like, you know, corn and things like that. But somebody from Poland had come over to the United States and they brought seeds because they noticed that the soil was similar to, you know, what they had in Poland for celery. And that's how they started growing the celery. And I just thought it was fascinating as far as, you know, the history and how, you know, east of the brook and west of the brook, you had the two different types of soil. So more, you know, the Polish were living on one side and the Italians and the other Europeans would grow more of the other vegetables.
Right.
Pretty much a big, you know, farmland back then. And then you know, with silty soil, most vegetables and crops will grow well in silty soil because it's very nutrient dense because of all the sediment from, you know, the lake beds. But peaty soil too is good for legumes and for different root vegetables. And you have chalky soil too, which is, you know, chalk is basically a calcium carbonate from, you know, different like coral beds from, you know, ancient times. And spinach, beets grow well, sweet corn, cabbage, and that type. And then the loamy we discussed before, that's considered by most to be, you know, the like in baseball, you have a utility player. You're familiar with that.
Right.
Utility player can play second base, third base, you know, outfield, all over the place. And so some of the other soils are more like specialists, but the loamy soil is like the utility player because you can grow pretty much anything in loamy soil.
You're speaking my language, Dr. Mike.
I know,
Baseball.
softball, you're a big softball enthusiast. But, you know, what to do when you're missing nutrients, that's, you know, the next question, because it's horrible that you need about 20 heads of romaine lettuce to get the same selenium that you got from 100 years ago. And I read this morning, I was reading a little bit on, you know, different nutrients. And, you know, one place, I'm not sure how they figure this out though, but you need to eat 26 apples that have the same nutrient density as one apple from around the Second World War. So who wants to eat 26 apples? Not me, you know, maybe a couple apples, but not 26. So a lot of times we might be eating a lot of food, but we're not getting that nutrient density because the food is lacking in certain things. And it makes me think about, are you familiar with the term eutrophication? Have you ever heard of that? Okay.
No,
Eutrophication.
that's too in depth for me.
Okay, for example, with lakes, what happens is that there's always a limiting factor for growth. And with phosphates, is a limiting factor for algae growth. And what happens is that when, you know, laundry detergent that gets dumped into, you know, like the sewage containing laundry detergent gets dumped into a lake that has a lot of phosphates, and then the algae, that's a limiting factor for algae, and then they bloom. And in the ocean too, you get these different algae, like the red tide and things like that. And you know, nature is very interesting because it, you know, there's one little factor that stops things from really taking off. And with algae, it'd be phosphates. And that process of eutrophication occurs when you get, you know, the phosphates that get put into the water, and then all hell breaks loose, so to speak. And it throws the ecosystem totally out of balance.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. Dr. Roxanne, I know you want to answer what is phosphates?
So it's a mineral. It's a mineral. So, and we have phosphate in our bodies. We have phosphorus in our bodies. So what Dr. Mike was saying in reference to that one little thing could turn it off, and that little thing is pH. So to understand the pH balance of your soil. So if you want to home garden or home farm, the first thing you have to do is check your pH of your soil. So a pH, acidic pH, is where vegetables and fruits like to grow in. So that's a pH of about a 5.8. The more alkaline soils are those that you can grow your rhododendrons and the hardy plants or sunflowers and things like that. Very hardy, rough plants that you could use for landscaping. And interestingly, I did a little research online to check the pH of your soil. You just take the soil, you add a 1/4 cup of vinegar, of white wine vinegar. And if it foams up, then your soil is alkaline. If it doesn't foam up, then your soil is acidic. And they do have calibers that could check your soil where you just stick it in there and your soil will be checked for the pH. Now on my property, our home is on an old horse farm. So I know that deep down in, there's plenty of horse manure, which are a lot of waste products, and those are mineralized products that, people use for farming, and to use the manure to make a very acidic soil, a little more alkaline. The lime you were talking about before, I would think lime would acidify, but it actually alkalinates, so it's very odd. You have to almost think reverse of what you think that product is. But it's very interesting because I didn't realize how much pH is in farming. And that's probably why on my property, if I tried to grow something, it wouldn't last because the soil is very hard. It's clay. So I have to go down in and mix it with, like Dr. Mike said, get some loamy, try to make a loamy soil, which is 20% clay. And the other percentages are a lighter soil so these plants could get roots. But really, it's very important. Our home farming, especially today, when stores closed and, these viruses are getting stronger, bacteria getting stronger. They're using a lot of herbicides and pesticides because they have to feed a population. So they're going to make, a tomato look like a huge tomato, So I think it's important to start to look at your own backyard. And if you live in an apartment, to consider hydroponic gardening. I use a company called Juice Plus. If you go on drcarfora.com and go Juice Plus, they have all the research on it. And they started hydroponics probably a good 14, 15 years ago. And it's actually a good way to get a little bit of your, fruits and vegetables and balancing the pH without soil, which is to me amazing also.
I know we've spoken a lot about home growing and the soil and stuff, but most of us, me included, don't really have the time to grow things. So let's get into, the mainstream of people and where they should buy things and how the production companies, the farmers are growing things and should we buy organic or what, how, and sometimes I know that organic is, it's used in a very loose way because I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just stating that sometimes things are not as organic or as well, what's the word I'm looking for? Healthy for each person. So Dr. Mike, you go first on the organic and the farmers out there. And I do want to state that and I always like to state this show is not to put anybody down. It's just really for information for us to learn how to best take care of ourselves. We have options in life. We could choose to buy non-organic or organic, but I just want to teach people the right way to take care of their own health. So I'm not into, and I'm not saying you guys are going to do it. I just want to set the stage. I really don't want to, put down the farmers because they're doing the best they can. And the flip side is, the people out in farming, they may not be as educated. you know, to learn how they should be farming. They may just know what they've grown to learn and from their families. So there's a lot of different parts to each story that, you know, we don't want to put anybody down. We just want to educate people. So Dr.
Right.
Mike, take it away.
Okay, well, first, a great source is the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org. They're a great source because they come up with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 every year, the 12 things that you should try to stay away from. And I'm sorry, the Dirty Dozen, 12 things to try to stay away from and buy organic. And then the Clean 15, the things that you don't necessarily have to buy organic. And you're really not going to be getting that many, you know, detrimental effects from that, because all of us are not stinking filthy rich, so we can't afford to buy everything organic all the time. So
Right.
the Dirty Dozen for 2020 are things that we should try to buy organic, because number one on the list is strawberries, because the toxicity of conventional strawberries, spinach, kale, nectarines, apples, grapes, peaches, cherries, pears, tomatoes, celery, and potatoes.
They should be bought organic, or they shouldn't be bought
should
organic?
be bought organic.
Should.
Those, and then they're Clean 15.
So why, wait, before you keep going,
Okay.
why should they buy them organic?
Because they have very high levels of pesticides.
Okay.
Okay. Now it's interesting because a potato and an onion. Potato, you should buy organic. An onion, you don't have to buy organic, because the onion is, you know, very low as far as the amount of pesticides that need to be used. So avocados these are things you do not have to buy organic.
Okay.
Avocados, sweet
Well, the
corn.
things that we are sharing our thoughts, they shouldn't be organic, because I don't, who said that?
Environmental Working Group, they're saying when you have a limited amount of income, it's great to buy everything organic, but these things are not necessarily going to do you that much harm to buy conventional.
Okay,
Right.
I just don't want to let people get off this show and think, oh, I don't need to buy them organic. These are just things that this research that you did from that company you just shared.
Right.
Or what is the company again?
Environmental Working Group,
Okay.
ewg.org.
Okay, so they're the ones that are sharing that necessarily you don't need to
Right.
buy these. Okay, go ahead.
And they have great information. They have a skin deep section of their website, which goes over cosmetics and toxicity cosmetics. And you actually can download their Healthy Living app, and you can take your cell phone and just scan the barcode of a product, and it'll give you the toxicity rating,
Oh, wow.
which is
Oh, that's
common.
great.
Yes. Wow.
Okay,
So
so
then-
the ones that they say you don't necessarily have to buy organic. Of course, if you have enough money, buy everything organic. Avocados, sweet corn, but be careful, because the vast majority of the corn in the United States is genetically modified. So, by the way, popcorn is not genetically modified. So if it says non-GMO, they haven't figured out how to make GMO popcorn yet, but I'm sure they will someday. Pineapple, onions, like I said before, papaya, sweet peas, eggplant, asparagus, cauliflower, cantaloupes, broccoli, mushrooms, cabbage, honeydew, and kiwi. Now, why 12 and why 15? Dirty Dozen, Clean 15. I think it's just because it sounds good. You came up with that. But that's their list. Like I said, because if you have enough money, of course, you can afford to buy everything organic. But getting along those lines with meat and different things, even though we're talking about growing things, whenever you have eggs, chicken, beef, lamb, whatever you eat, if you're eating animal protein, you should try to always eat a product that eats what it does in nature. Because, you know, there's an old poster, which I love, I talk about sometimes, that it shows a caveman. And he's looking at a cup of coffee and a Dunkin' Donut with a very confused look on his face. And it said, our ancestors did not run on Dunkin', which is pretty funny.
Love that.
because we, you know, when you look at all of these so-called primitive societies, when they got westernized, look at Okinawa, when you had the fast food restaurants come in, and you know, the Okinawans were in the blue zones, and you saw all the so-called Western, the diseases, the modern diseases, like, you know, diabetes and all of the cardiovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases that were
Right.
virtually non-existent in these populations, all came into, you know, into their health system. But
Right.
it's, you know, because we should try to eat what we were designed to eat. And Weston Price was great because he went around in the early 1900s to all these different indigenous tribes, and he saw how they have such different diets, but the continuity was that they're all healthy, which was amazing. And one thing that some of these societies were doing, that they were taking when they would burn things, they would take the ash and they would put it in for fertilizer. That's one good thing to do, not to throw it away, but you know, just you can do that from our fireplaces, you know, take what's left and then, you know, work it into your garden or put it into your compost, which is something that we should all be trying to do too. But no, it does stink. But now again, I'll be quiet for a little while because I get 2 hours straight.
Well, you know, Dr. Mike, you know, and thank you for, you know, going back and forth with Dr. Roxanne. But you have so much wisdom and you have so much education, and you just have an enormous amount of wisdom and knowledge. That's the word. And same with you, Dr. Roxanne. And we're blessed to have you both share with everybody. I see you writing, Dr. Roxanne, your comments on what Dr. Mike said.
No, and always I you know, have conversation with Dr. Mike and the audience here, but interestingly, that EWG that you mentioned, Dr. Mike, shows they just had a national pesticide law reform for children, finding that the Roundup that's being used out in society is toxic to our children. Now,
Wow.
with Roundup, we've, as anti-aging and functional medicine doctors, years ago, there was a study that was done with Roundup, and there's a byproduct called glyphosate. So glyphosate gets into your cells. You can't check it via blood work. What I do in the office, I have, it's called a Zyto scanner. So I had them put the data in this biocommunication system that I could check for glyphosate toxicity. And we were discussing organic farming. Glyphosate is found in my patients that eat organic. So these organic farms are as organic as you're going to get them. What happens with Roundup when it rains and then when you get the humidity and it goes back up into the clouds, these clouds are also watering the organic farms. So again, you could get as organic as you could get. So the glyphosate goes up into the clouds, and then it's now watering this organic farm. Glyphosate goes down deep into the soil, which again is a byproduct from Roundup, goes deep within the soil, and then it gets into the stalk of our vegetables and our fruits. Now, when you look at pH balance, just getting back to home farming and looking at fruits and vegetables and pH balancing, how to check the pH of your soil, and understanding that the rain could contaminate your soil. And we all do the best we can do with what we have. When people can't afford to go and buy organic, it would be organic first, then second fresh, then third frozen, never can. But unfortunately, with society now, unemployment on the rise, COVID-2 infections, people losing their homes, they're going to get canned goods. So everyone out there, nutrition is nutrition as best as you can get it. So please do not fear not eating organic. Do not fear not eating out of a can. There is aluminum in a can, but you know what? We could deal with it later, but try to feed yourself. Bottom line is lean and green. So lean, chicken, fish, turkey, and lots of vegetables. So no matter what form you could get. Just while I was along my merry way, I said I got this sunflower. I'm going to pull it closer, and I'm going to pull closer this magazine. So this sunflower is from Long Island. Now, Long Island, we have beautiful farms on Long Island and organic farms out east. We have cows that you could get non-pasteurized milk from. We have goats. So we are, as Long Islanders, we have it all around us. And I encourage people to go to your local farmer, support your local farmer. But look how beautiful this is, because it was grown in the proper soil. Now, I picked up this magazine, okay? It's Time magazine. Now it says on it 100 disease-fighting foods, 100 disease-fighting foods. And you could see the cover. Like Dr. Mike, you were talking avocados, you were talking, cherries, even coffee. And when I looked at this, I loved it that we were doing this show today, because when I looked, I said, wow, do you know how hard it is to grow these in the proper soil and in the proper climates? And you mentioned before, Renee, like the farmers. The farmers are the most educated people when it comes to this. They are out there from checking their little grapes for the wine you drink, to see what the pH is, to see what all of that is. So I really enjoy, like, here, look at these grapes. Look at this. Look at this.
It's beautiful.
These
They're
are
beautiful.
Long Island grapes. They're from our vineyards out east. This, wait, I gotta show you, I'm gonna make it fall apart. But this is from the hydroponic garden. This is butter lettuce. Butter lettuce is so easy to grow in a hydroponic garden. So this is good. All right, and this, people, this is from Costco, because I had to get a big bag of lemons, okay? So I did go to Costco. Don't falter me about that, but I got my lemons in Costco. Let me just show you different things.
Lemons are very good. Our show was so big last time when we had the vegetables and the nuts. We were holding them up and we were showing them. It was like, oh my God.
Oh, visual is everything, Renee.
Yeah,
it's everything. I don't have my nuts to show what they look like, but interestingly, we talked last time. When you cut a lemon in half, and I'm not being, sexual or anything, this is the truth and we speak truth. When you cut this in half, it looks like a breast. Right. Mike, stop, Mike. I see you there, Mike. But you see the nipple of a breast and the breast if you cut this in half. Lemons happen to be awesome for breast health. And when you look at the inside of a lemon, if I had a knife to cut it in half, it shows the mammary ducts of breast, right? And our umbilical cords, our breasts give life, right? So again, in farming, this is life. This is life for people to have. And to look at things like, all right, my last thing is I like Dr. Mike, I could blah, 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 blah. But
that's why I love both of you. I just have this guest that could just be the host.
This here, this looks like the inside of a lung, believe it or not. And these are alveoli of the lung where air is exchanged, where you get your oxygen. And in here is where you have your highest antioxidants for the lung. And grapes, talk about CoV-2 and these viruses and influenza viruses. Grapes are awesome for the lungs. They're an anti-inflammatory, and they decrease that inflammatory response that these viruses and these bacteria put into us. So I'll put it back to you, Dr. Mike.
Dr. Mike, I just want to share a few thoughts before you go, because I'll forget. First of all, I believe that in my world, God kind of guides us to and sets us up. And this show, like you said, Dr. Roxanne, couldn't be more perfect with that Time Life magazine, 100 disease-fighting foods, and we're doing the show while that we schedule. My sister brought it in, Judy scheduled it, and we're doing it while that's on the show. I mean, what else could we say? What else? What I'm going to do is I'm going to send this show to Time Life for both of you, so you could both so they can know the work you're both doing. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible. So the other thing was, I do eat a lemon every day. Yeah, I'm not a lemon. And when I get up in the morning, I drink lemon in a glass of a pot of warm water, tea. And that's what, lemon and water, warm lemons, because I know it's a natural diuretic and it keeps your body functioning. Am I correct? It keeps the the fluids in your body functioning, going through your body. Am I correct in my thought process?
It actually alkalinates the body. So lemon water, lemon when it's added to water, it alkalinates once it's inside you. It's fantastic for your health. It's a great fat burner and cleanser.
Good, good. So I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. I'm not all there, but I'm on the right path. So, Dr. Mike, I know you have a lot to share with what Dr. Roxanne said, but when you get done with it, then I want to stroll into, the disease fighting portion of this, because, we set it up. We've spoken about the earth. We've spoken about the soil. We've spoken about organic, but really, why do we do it? And can any of like Dr. Roxanne just said, the lemons are for breasts. So we'll get into that discussion as well, because that really is an important piece. But share with us what you wanted to share.
A number of years ago, I read this one article and it showed all these different foods and how it looks like it's almost like a guide, like a glossary of index to what to eat for what part of the body. If you look at a walnut, it looks like a little brain.
Right.
Slice a carrot, it looks like an eye. So it was all examples like that. And it was amazing when you start looking at these things. I mean, this all happened by coincidence, or was this basically a guide that God was giving us?
God.
It's incredible. Kidney beans look like, kidneys. But just a little bit more about pH. We'll discuss a little bit about that. How, for example, the pH of the blood has to be so specific, between 7.45 to 7.65 pH, or else we could die. I mean, it's 0.2 of a pH. It's so narrow, and different foods are grown in different soils with optimal pHs for those. For example, with more acidic soil, you have apples, carrots, cauliflower, corn, cucumbers. A more alkaline, asparagus, beans, beets, and also cauliflower can grow in either one, garlic, kale, and sweet peas. But to fortify your soil, how to get your soil in general a lot healthier. The sustainable biochar, if you have basically carbon that you put into the soil, inorganic carbon acts as a sponge to maintain moisture. And organic compost provides immediate soil food and all types of organic nutrients. And that is really good if you just take all your kitchen scraps and you mix it in there and throw it in. But it does stink, though, a lot of times as things start to decay. But then also you can put some grass clippings in too, depending upon what you put on your grass, though, because if you're putting pesticides on your grass, it's not a good idea to put your grass clippings in your compost. And worms are extremely important for healthy soil, and they provide nutrients and enzymes and improve soil structure and also make the soil more porous. And as far as nitrogen goes, because we were talking a little bit about nitrogen before, it's amazing that how industries try to repurpose themselves. And we're talking a little bit about this, started talking about this before the show. After the First World War, you had, all of the bomb companies making bombs and no more bombs to make. So they started making, using the nitrogen to make fertilizer, commercial fertilizer. And then the companies that were making nerve gas and things like that, what do? You start making pesticides. So, a lot of times these different industries weren't necessarily producing things because they're good for us, because they were just trying to do something a little different. An example of that is the waste that come off of electrostatic precipitators. And
What is that?
It's a smokestack, and they have these things that catch all the, all the fumes, and they electrostatically precipitate and drops it down to, collect, and they forms a sludge, and it has fluoride in it. So what happened was that this company decided, because they had to take them out to, dispose of them, and it cost like maybe $12,000 per tanker full to go take them, and they would bury them in salt mines. They'd put them down deep into the earth, like in Utah. But we never got rid of things. We just kind of sequester them, but the solution to pollution is not dilution or isolation. The solution to pollution is not to create to begin with. That's a solution. So there
But pollution can be disintegrated, right? When we create something, we could clear through it, right? Like clouds coming down, we can kind of make our way through it and clear it. Am I correct in my thought process?
you can, but sometimes it takes a lot of time to do that. But they would pay $12,000 to get rid of a tanker full of this stuff, but had fluoride in it. They figured, oh, well, we can sell it to municipalities to dump it into the water system. Now, if it dumps on the highway, you need a hazmat unit to come clean it up, but you can go dump it into the water system to fluoridate the water. A lot of countries in Europe are making it illegal to fluoridate water, and there's a big controversy in dentistry now about the benefits of ingesting fluoride, as well as amalgam fillings and
You
root
agree
canals.
with that, Dr. Roxanne?
Yes, so just in response to Dr. Mike with the fluoride and fluoride being added into the water, back in the 60s in Queens and Brooklyn, they added fluoride into the water because they thought that it would prevent decay in a child's mouth. But also they added fluoride into toothpaste. So the children grew up getting what's called fluorinosis, which are stains on the front of the teeth. So then they stepped back with the fluoride in toothpaste, fluoride in the water. They still do add fluoride in Queens Supply. Anywhere you are, your local water department, you can call them and you could get the exact what's being filtered in your water, what do they add, chlorine. Our area adds chlorine, and they have to because they have to kill the bacteria and the viruses. So some people in their home will have a system that will remove the chlorine. Wow. So the other thing, Dr. Mike, that you were saying as well with the the pesticides and herbicides, and when they add it to the fruits and vegetables and things like that, gluten became a very big problem in this country because gluten was added to the wheat crop back in the 70s when the population boom occurred, and the government had to feed so many families, so it became part of the farming. Farmers and people didn't know that this would be a problem down the line. So we do have to kind of almost reverse our farming. Worms in organic farming. Worms only live in a pH of 5.5 to 7. So they're not going to live in an alkaline environment. So just like us, we live in a perfect pH, like Dr. Mike said, your pH of your body, 7.4. You have to stay within that pH or you become too alkaline or you become too acidic. So just like a worm living in a soil of the perfect pH of 5.5 to 7, we have to be, our bodies, our cells, our live bacterium in our gut have to be in the perfect pH. Therefore, when we eat that fruit or that vegetable, it needs to be perfectly balanced for our bodies. Where that fruit and that vegetable comes from is the soil. Now, with the pesticides and the herbicides and things like that, we do have to reverse farming. We have to dig down deep. We've got to start churning soil. And again, Renee, it would be great to get a farmer on here.
Oh my God.
Really, my future in-law, I'm going to say, he farms his yard. We call him Farmer Dave. Now, Farmer
Can he be on the
Dave,
show?
Oh,
Would he want to be on the show?
He is Farmer Dave. Now, Farmer Dave learned from an Italian guy that's down the block from him. They live on 1/4 of an acre, and he's got a farm that tomatoes, lettuce, everything you could think of he's got in this little piece. So he knows how to farm. So Farmer Dave, look out. You might be coming on Renee's show.
Get him on. You know what? See what day he could do it. I think we're booked through October. But you could just work with Judy. If you want to text me, because I know you're not on the
I'll text him and let him know, because all of us friends, he'll come with tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that. We're like, what are you putting in these things? He goes, no, he churns the dirt. He made his soil really rich in Massapequa. You know,
Yeah.
he's got a little farm in Massapequa and it's his backyard.
My grandfather, my father's father, had a huge garden in his backyard. He lived on a corner lot. So the whole lot where now a house is built, that's how big it was, 50 by 100, 50 by 100. And then his backyard, so it must have been, 200 by 200 or something like that, had all, had tomatoes, had cucumbers, had peppers, had figs. As a matter of fact, it had fig trees. It had, he had hot peppers, and I touched the hot peppers one time and touched my eyes when I was a little girl, and I was in a lot of pain. But it was such a beautiful thing, and I'll never forget my grandmother. I can't forget my grandmother, Grandpa, Nana. She would go out in the garden and put her hand up, and birds used to just land on her hands. Because she was just a gentle soul. That the nature knows that when you're a gentle soul. So they were incredible. That that my back my history is a wonderful garden as well. And sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Mike. Just wanted to know Dr. Roxanne's feedback. So continue where you were going.
All right. Well, just before I get to I'll say the last thing to add, organic kelp meal is very good to add for naturally getting nitrogen into your soil. But what I wanted to mention from what Dr. Roxanne was saying before is that with the fluoride, there's an expression in medicine, they call it, a lot of people, there's a lot of natural fluoride that occurs in the water in Texas. So when somebody has mottled teeth from the excess fluoride, they call it Texas tooth. That's the old expression. And then another thing about the chlorine is that when you take a shower, what's very bad is even if you don't have a dechlorinating system in your house, it's good to get a filter to put on your shower to take the chlorine out, because it outgasses and you breathe it in. It's very toxic to the system in the lungs to be breathing in the chlorine gas that comes off of hot water, because it outgasses from the hot water. But there's so many things to think about, because what we have to do is we have to choose our battles, because there's so many things in our environment that could do us harm. And we have to figure out, really what's important to us to get, you talk about most bang for your buck. Well, you only have a limited amount of time to do things. What the things are that you can really do to decrease, your chances of getting ill and increasing your chances of being healthy. Because everything we do either makes us live longer or not as long, as far as probability. Of course, you get hit by a car or a truck, but you always hear about those people that, they smoke cigarettes and they live to be 95, smoking 2 packs a day. Well, maybe they'll live to be 110 if they didn't smoke. You never know.
Right.
It was in the movie Super Size Me, there was a guy that ate, I think a Big Mac, at least one Big Mac a day for, decades. And he had low cholesterol, perfectly healthy, but they should study his DNA to see what makes him tick, because a lot of other people would not do well. After 30 days, the guy that made the movie was basically going into jaundice. He was going to liver failure for 30 days at McDonald's. So not very good commercial for McDonald's, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, Dr. Mike, what are some, and I know Dr. Roxanne has it as well, because we've been talking for an hour, so you're correct. We could talk forever, especially on this topic. But let's really focus on, not what's so much in the soil, but how we could, let's go back to where you were talking before, ways to improve health. Ways, and we can touch on all of them, like the breast cancer. And I know a dear friend of mine just went in for surgery from breast cancer. But what would be for strokes and aphasia? Let's do for strokes first. Let's focus on strokes. How could someone prevent from having a stroke, with eating, and how can somebody that has had a stroke increase their recovery? Dr. Mike, you go first.
Okay. That's a loaded question. That's like a 3-week discussion, but just
we have another 45 minutes if you want.
the viscosity of the blood is very important. First of all, the INR blood test to see how thick your blood is, because you don't want it too thick, you don't want it too thin. If it's too thin, you can hemorrhage. If it's too thick, it's not good because it puts stress on the heart to pump the blood and also increase the chances of blood clots. So you have two different types of strokes. Basically, one which is a hemorrhagic stroke, where you have a breaking of a blood vessel and hemorrhaging in the brain, and then you also have an occlusion where there's a blockage that stops the blood from getting to part of the brain. So we had talked, a couple of shows ago, we talked about, vitamin K2 is important, because vitamin K2, along with the vitamin D, helps to get the calcium into the bones and the teeth where it belongs, not the soft tissues and the arteries where it doesn't belong. So,
Right, but hold on one second. Now, Dr. Roxanne, what is vitamin D? What vegetables or fruits are vitamin D?
Well, that's hard, because even with our vitamin D rich foods, most of them are dairy, right? So, a lot of people are staying away from dairy because of the inflammatory, and also because insecticides, pesticides, and things like that. So most people are depleted in vitamin D. And so it is important for not only a vitamin, but it's a pro-hormone. We discussed this on the last show, how it affects the immunity and increases the immune cells. As far as stroke prevention, strokes are multifactorial. Like Dr. Mike said, you could have a hemorrhagic stroke, or you could have an embolic stroke. An embolic stroke is one that is a clot that can go to the brain. Now that clot can travel from the carotid artery, which can get inflamed and blocked. It could travel from the heart, where the heart, if it has an arrhythmia, such as atrial fibrillation, and that person doesn't have their blood thinned out to prevent that clot from forming, when the person has atrial fibrillation, that clot could also go to the brain or to the lung, and that's called a pulmonary emboli. And pulmonary emboli, you could have small pulmonary emboli, or you could have very large ones, and unfortunately, very large ones usually do not survive. But the small ones could come from legs. So if you're on a long trip and you're not pumping your legs, real important. If you're going on some trip longer than 2 hours, I tell people to take an aspirin before going on the plane, or getting out of your car like at least every 2 hours and pumping your legs and going for a walk. There's a lot of people that travel from New York to Florida, New York to Texas. Now Colorado is becoming a big thing, and people are taking their cars because air travel is at the minimal and there's a lot of restrictions. So they'll take the car, but you really must thin out your blood, because even if you don't have a risk factor for an embolic stroke or a hemorrhagic stroke, a clot in the leg could end your life. Happens after knee surgeries.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. The vitamins and nutrients.
I will share. Can I share something? I will share. After I had a knee surgery, Dr. Mike knows this. After I had a knee surgery, I guess 2 years ago or something like that, I went for physical therapy the next day, because I didn't want to get clotting. I knew that I had to be moving. I had to be moving to stop that clotting. So it was painful to have physical therapy. They did it very gently, but it was very painful to have physical therapy on that day. Dr. Roxanne, can you hold on one second? I just want Dr. Mike to be able to finish what he was talking about, because I interrupted him because I wanted to get your feedback, if you don't mind. Go ahead, Doctor.
I was pretty much finished.
No.
With that.
Okay. Okay. So Dr. Roxanne, you were going to say something?
Just in stroke prevention or prevention of any disease, always eat well, eat the best that you can, mostly a vegetable-based diet, plant-based diet. And if you can't get your nutrients in plants and vegetables, then take supplementation. And always know your levels. You could get them done, you could get your blood levels checked, and you could get your genetics checked. So know your body.
Right. Dr. Mike, what about stroke recovery? Like, what would you recommend for stroke recovery?
Just a couple more things I was just thinking about for prevention is, of course, try to keep your body weight down. You don't want to be overweight.
That's why I'm on a diet.
Blood pressure, too, is extremely important. And stress levels, and is also very important for that. So
And the other piece to that, I guess I would add, is to always make sure you're in communication with your doctors. Visit your doctors, make your regular doctor visits so that they can keep track and know your levels, because that really is important in your health, is to make sure that the doctors know where you're at and know your levels. I just went to my annual checkup, had my blood taken, actually had a special stroke blood clotting test taken to see where if I have a specific, it's not a disease, but a blood clotting factor in my blood. But because of my daughter, she has it, so they tested mine as well. Because after my stroke, it was 30 years ago, so I don't think they had that type of test. So I'm testing now to see. I should really note that on the show one day what test it is, and I will. So I am. So I agree with you, Dr. Mike. Dr. Roxanne, you should keep in, you should keep in touch with your doctors. So
sometimes post-stroke, they give patients usually blood thinner and like a heparin or Coumadin, but the problem with that is that's basically rat poison, and there's a lot of potential side effects. And there's
what's rat poison?
Coumadin.
Coumadin. Okay, that's a blood thinner. Am I correct?
Right, and it makes the rats hemorrhage out and die.
So why did I'm just asking, this is a really silly question. So there are other blood thinners. Are all the blood thinners considered to be rat poison?
Well, there are a lot of natural ways that you can do. I'm sure Dr. Roxanne works with the patients on that. Different ways to, influence the INR, which is the viscosity of the blood, without drugs. There's ways to do it, but of course, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot easier just to take a drug. But, there's no drug without potential side effects. Anytime you can do something with lifestyle modifications, with diet, with nutrition, supplementation, without the side effects is always preferred. But of course, sometimes drugs are necessary because everything else fails. And sometimes surgery is necessary. But I love the commercial from years ago. Minor surgery is a surgery that happens to someone else. Isn't the commercial? Because anything happens to you is a minor.
Right.
Surgery.
Right. Dr. Roxanne? Oh, go ahead, Dr.
But then the other thing that is good all the time would be some type of statin drug. And the problem with the statin drugs is it robs the body of coenzyme Q10 and also vitamin K2. So vitamin K2, as I said, is important to get the calcium to the bones and teeth, not to the arteries. But when you're giving somebody a statin, it robs the body of K2. So it's actually going to increase the amount of plaque forming by that. So anybody on a statin should be taking K2. But then the problem with K2 also is it starts to influence the thickness of the blood, along with all the other vitamin K. So, it becomes very complicated. That's why sometimes some medical doctors say, don't take supplements. Because if they don't know enough about it, then it creates a situation where they recommend something, it could be liable for that if something happens to the patient.
My feeling on any medicine, this is my personal feeling, not recommended to anybody, is that when you have an emergency, you got to fix that emergency first. You got to balance that emergency, whether it's taking blood thinners or after my knee surgery, I took painkillers because actually when I herniated my disc, I had to take painkillers. But Dr. Mike, you know this because I was working with you. The painkillers are only to stabilize you. And then you need to figure out with your trusted doctors the next step in recovery, because painkillers are very addictive. You get addicted to it very quickly, and blood thinners can really do a damage to your blood. I mean, my daughter has to be on a light blood thinner. I'm not sure which it is, and I'll let you know, Dr. Roxanne and Dr. Mike, just so you can give me your feedback on that if you don't mind. I really think that sometimes we have to work, like you said, Dr. Mike, you have to work in balance with your doctor, for your health, and then you need to move forward. Dr. Roxanne?
Yes, so not all medicine is bad. And I'm going to say that again. Medicine saves lives, okay? Yes. When used appropriately. Very, very important. and important to know the depletions that those medicines give. Now, Coumadin, yes, it's rat poisoning, was studied in rats, and it's a low dose rat poisoning. The other options are Eliquis or Xarelto, which cost $450 to $600 per month, okay, if you can, where Coumadin will cost $12 a month. So for an elderly person on Medicare that cannot get coverage, like my mother, who lives in chronic atrial fibrillation, and if she did not take Coumadin, okay, she would probably have an embolic stroke. Now, she was recently hospitalized with a bleed from Coumadin because what I think, and everyone should watch for this too, know where your medicines are coming from, because over 80% of these medicines coming into this country are from other countries. And you can't tell me that every single pill is going to be checked coming into the ports. So that's why real important during the election time to keep this country self-sufficient. We need to do our own farming. We need to have our own manufacturing companies for our medications. We need to produce our own honey. We need to do all of that here in the United States and keep everything in the United States, because things that are coming from abroad from certain countries, okay, and again, you know, you have to be careful. Warfarin and Tylenol come from China. That's all I'm going to say, okay? And I took a whole stock bottle of my mother's Warfarin that she's been on for 12 years, never had a complication, on the same dose, recently wound up with the bleed, 4 units of blood, vitamin K, all of that to get her away from her bleed. And thankfully she's alive today and doing well. And this just happened 2 weeks ago.
Oh
So,
my God.
you know, she's doing very well back on her Coumadin, but I took that stock bottle. I think that stock bottle is toxic. She got it from a mail away plan. I said, never again. You're not getting a mail away plan. You are going to the local pharmacist and he's going to know where he's getting it from.
And you
Because-
know, a lot of insurances only cover mail away plans now.
I know, but don't do it, because they do cover the inside plans. And these insurance companies are owned by, you know, well, how could I say this? Politically correct. It's one big global unit, from insurance companies to your pharmacies to everything. So support your mom pop, okay, farms that are local to you. Support your mom pop pharmacies, okay, not big conglomerates. Go to your local pharmacist and get
Right.
back to where you can communicate with your pharmacist, with the doctor and yourself, that nice triangle. Patients on top, then the pharmacist and the doctor, with the patients on top. That's all that counts. Everything else in between is a horror show, okay? So again, food first, like we're talking about here, food first, farming it, know where it's come from, get the pH, know if it's pesticides used, herbicides used. Second is supplement. If you can't get it in food, you take supplement. And last is medication. When used appropriate, know the depletion it causes and supplement that depletion for that. Statin, CoQ10, metformin, CoQ10 and B, okay, protonics, B12 vitamins, okay, sublingual. So you could look these up online and take the supplement that it depletes, but not all medicine is bad.
Dr. Mike?
I just want to add something that just talking about it. I thought of this earlier today, but I'm glad you just triggered that part of my brain to bring it up, that the best vegetables and fruit you can have is when you pick it at the prime of ripeness, the highest nutrient density. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen because they get, you know, shipped from so far away, and you have the shelf life has to be increased. And what they do is then they pump ethylene gas in to artificially ripen it sometimes. And you see the tomatoes when they're picked, they're all green. And if you have a tomato that's picked when it's nice and red, I mean, there's nothing like going out to your garden and picking everything that's, you know, ready and making a salad out of it. I mean, just your taste buds explode. It's unbelievable. And plus the fact that, you know, like I said, the nutrient density is so much better. And one additional thing, as far as what you can grow, even people with apartments, can grow sprouts. And sprouts have extreme nutrient density and they're easy to grow, and you can grow them without soil also, the sprouts.
Well, a friend of mine eats like seaweed.
Yeah,
Seaweed, like there's a lot of off the beaten path kind of things. Like I would never think to go buy seaweed and eat seaweed. What does seaweed affect or enhance in our bodies?
that's
Well, I
right.
wanna
And
comment-
iodine.
okay.
Go ahead.
I want to comment on seaweed. To me, I'm very godly, and God is my savior. And for the grace of God, we have this beautiful planet Earth. And what's amazing to me is that seaweed is grown deep in the sea, but God has figured out a way to bring it to the ocean. I mean, up and then to the sands where we kick it and we go, ew, this is disgusting. Look at all this seaweed. But seaweed has iodine in it. And it's great minerals, right, Dr. Mike? Great for the thyroid, great for your body, great for alkalinization. So, you know, in Japan and China, they eat a lot of seaweed. So stop kicking the seaweed and going, ew, ew, ew. It actually is brought to us to say, eat it.
Do you think like seaweed that just comes out of the ocean, how does it taste?
I'm not saying eat it from the sand, but I'm saying
Okay.
think about it. But you can, that's where it comes from. You can,
Well,
I would boil it because you don't know what was in it because of what man has put in the ocean. But
right.
The point is, like, God really has figured out a way, like, get those waves and bring it to the surface and let people see it. And come on, eat this. Just like, you know, the apple on the tree, pick it and eat it. And although that caused the sin in the beginning, but anyway, that's a whole other story.
Dr. Mike?
Well, a few other things as far as I want to mention about biodynamic farming. And
What's biodynamic? You got to speak English to me. I don't know what it is. So what's biodynamic?
Well, I was about to explain it to you, but
Okay. No, because sometimes you're so wise that you just use these terminologies that I'm like, what is he talking about? So go ahead.
there's a classification that biodynamic farming is a form of organic farming, but it's a lot higher standard of organic farming. Because unfortunately, just the term organic now, there's a lot of loopholes the government has allowed for different things that can be done on an organic farm and still be classified as organic. It's not like it used to be. There's an old poster too, you know, it shows the Norman Rockwell farmer and the wife, and it says, eat organic, or as our grandparents called it, food. Because, you know, everything was organic back in the day.
Right.
Before pesticides and everything. But biodynamic farming, like I said, it's a very high level of, if you look it up, you'll see it's you know, I was gonna say it's like organic farming on steroids, but that's kind of like that.
Well, that's actually what I was referring to initially, you know, and I was asking both of you, you know, organic, it really can be, you know, I don't want to use a negative term, but it sometimes in the industry with anything, it can be a cover up. It can be like they're living to the standards that have been set, but it's not the standard what you would think is organic.
But organic is regulated. The word natural is not.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yes.
natural.
Important. Very important.
That's
important.
Just about anything, which is horrific. But
so any industry could put natural on, just so the consumer that's not knowledgeable or didn't see a program like this really thinks that that's something that's good for them and they're going to eat it.
Right. It's a good buzzword to make people want to, you know, buy it. But just like we have the microbiome in our gut, you know, we have by some estimates about 100 trillion, you know, microorganisms in us and on us. And what happens is we need at least 85% beneficial to 15% pathological to maintain health. But when you start to get more than 15% pathological, that's when you start to run into trouble. It's almost like the, you know, the correction officers and the inmates, keeping them in line. The 85% keep the 15% in line. Although that's not the ratio they have in prisons. But what we need to do is look at the soil similar to the way we look at our gut And, going back to the 60s, I remember the 1960s when they used to sell yogurt, a lot of the yogurt was pasteurized because people were disgusted to think that they could be eating live bacteria. But they didn't really know back then that by pasteurizing it, you're killing the health benefits of the yogurt.
Wow.
But we've really learned a lot, because when I was in chiropractic school in the early 80s, you never really gave bacteria its due. It's like, it's like Rodney Dangerfield getting no respect. The bacteria didn't really get the respect, because if we don't have the bacteria, we can't be alive, because the
Right.
bacteria lives in symbiosis with us. It's just like the bacteria in the soil is so important for the growth of the plants. And the nitrogen fixing bacteria take nitrogen out of the air and put it into the soil for the plant to be able to use. It's amazing. And this all didn't happen by accident also. This is a divine plan.
Who was here? Dr. Roxanne, I saw you sit up. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, just to the effect of, with our biome, our normal biome, it's a city of bacteria in our gut that we have to feed. And we have a city and a world of fruits and vegetables and beautiful stuff for us to get nourished. So through nourishing ourselves through our world called Earth, our bacterium is keeping alive, and thus we're staying alive because of that. And we really need to take care of Mother Earth. We really do. We really need to get back to, again, the basics. And like you said earlier, Renee, things happen, right? So when this Cove 2 was released, when I used that gum seed, that gum seed tree, it's from an oak tree, that seed looks like a coronavirus. And that's why I used it for my video and showing how coronavirus spreads, and got so much attention that in the Midwest, a woman contacted me and said that gum seed makes Tamiflu, which is what we use for regular influenza. Right. Looking more into that tree, the inside bark of that tree makes losartan, which is a blood pressure medicine. So our fruits, vegetables, trees, everything out there, like penicillin is made from bread mold, right? Everything out there is produced, and sometimes we need to go the extra mile or whatever to give someone something stronger in the form of medicine. But a lot of medicines do come from barks of trees, leaves, and down in the West Indies, they have all these medicinal trees, which are just absolutely phenomenal, that they could put the leaves in, make a form of tea, for health and wellness. So we have everything out there. We just have to take care of it. And we need to keep America clean, and we need to really get back to the basics, get back to the family unit, the home gardening, and, staying local.
It's funny, we've been doing this for an hour and a half, and it was a perfect segue. We came back to really the beginning of the show, where I believe that this coronavirus is really just a little wink that we needed to get back to basics. We need to honor the soil, honor the ocean, honor the trees, honor the birds, honor nature, really take time to reflect and slow down a little bit. I think that's something that I'm struggling with. I really do try to always, sometimes when I get that free moment, I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I have to hear in my brain to, okay, slow down, honor it, take time to be in that moment, because it's really important to not hurry through life, because life could pass us by in one split second, which we all know from this coronavirus, but me specifically because of my stroke, people that have passed, so quickly. So we're gonna start to dwindle down and roll out. I would like to sing a little bit at the end of the show. I think, like I said before, I think it's really important. Music is such an important aspect of my life, and I used to do it every show, me and Jim and Tommy in the studio and Janine and stuff, but we got away from it because things were too crazy and stuff like that. But I do want to get back to adding music to all my shows. But I do want to give you this last opportunity to share, to go back to where we were talking about before, to talking about the soil and talking about the plants and how we eat. Just give us a quick recap. And I do want to share something with you, Dr. Roxanne. I have a very good friend, Rose. Her foundation talks about bees and needing honey. And you spoke about that before. I would love to do a show, Dr. Mike. You're always welcome to join us on that show. But I think it really is important. Back when I was at Madhouse TV, she talked about how bees are important. And if we don't have bees, we don't have a lot. We don't have our foods. We don't have because bees pollinate. So I think it's very important to bridge off of this show, and to invite her to be on our show so that we could talk about that a little bit. And also your father-in-law, you said, the farmer, who did you say?
Farmer Dave.
Farmer Dave. Is that your father-in-law, you said?
It's my future daughter's father-in-law.
Okay, so your future daughter's father-in-law.
My daughter's future father-in-law.
Okay, so yes, we got to invite him as well.
Farmer Dave.
So Dr. Mike, you go first. You share your recap on the pinpoint things. I know there's so much, but I want to give you this opportunity, and also share with everybody how they can contact you if they have any questions.
Okay, what I wanted to really, I think more importantly, the point I want to make is use this time that the gut is really the center of immunity in the body. And it's so important, especially with COVID, to have a healthy gut, because so much of our immunity depends upon our gut health. And besides that the gut produces the majority of the body's serotonin, the feel-good hormone. And if the gut bacteria are not working properly, you won't get that serotonin. And the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, those drugs like Paxil and Prozac and Buspar, those drugs, what they do is they stop the old serotonin from being reabsorbed by the body. But the old serotonin, the body has an innate intelligence, and the old serotonin's not good. Just like when you take Reclass, a drug to stop osteoporosis, it stops the osteoclast from digesting the old bone, but the bone's totally turned over. So you can't mess with the innate intelligence of the body. And, part of the side effects of a lot of these drugs for depression are suicide and homicide. So there's so many ways to increase through vitamin D, through going to the sunshine, exercising, taking omega-3 fatty acids. There's so many different ways to help depression. But like Dr. Roxanne was saying, sometimes drugs are necessary to save lives. But if you can do the same thing without potential side effects, because every medical decision, you have to say, there's risks and there are benefits. Is it worth the potential risk to get the potential benefit? But you can always end up at the short end of the stick. You could, the 1% that survives, you could be one of the 1%, or you could be one of the 1% that gets the bad side effect. So you never lose a fight you're not in. So the best thing to do is to avoid any type of potential danger, and then you can live a healthy and happy life, probably. There are no guarantees in life.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that, because I had a board meeting the other day, and we're such a great board. I love our board. We're diverse. They're just a great board. And one of the things that one of them said to me was, what I learned from you, Renee, life is about plan B. Because you never know what's going to happen. You have all these plans in your life, but things twist and turn and happen. And I saw that plaque in the hospital when my father was in ICU in Hackensack Hospital. I saw that plaque, and that always stuck in my brain. The life is about plan B. Jim, I want to share with you, if you don't mind, once we close out, could we take a little break? Would that be possible? Okay, I just wanted to share that with you so I don't surprise you with it. So I'll let you know when we're gonna take a little break. I just wanted to let you know. So Dr. Roxanne,
one more thing, which is right after what you were saying about the plan B, which is extremely important, because a lot of companies now, what they've done is, because of COVID, it decimated their business, but they switched gears and they did something else related to their skill sets and their capabilities to be successful. And other companies just basically went belly up. So a lot of times you have to reinvent yourself. So plan B is extremely important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you have to be open to it because it's hard, you know.
Yes.
So thank you, Dr. Mike. Dr. Roxanne?
So it's all about getting healthy naturally. I teach my patients that. So food first. Dr. Mike mentioned serotonin in the gut and in the brain. So the banana is shaped like a smile. That has 5-HTP, which produces serotonin in it. Again, food first. Supplement second. If you can't get the vitamin D, you can't get the vitamin Ks, you can't get fruits and vegetables. You're supposed to eat 10 to 15 servings of fruits and vegetables. One serving is a handful. Take it in supplement form. I recommend Juice Plus. Everyone knows that. I love this product. So it's vine ripened, like Dr. Mike said. They pick it from the vine, cold press, and put it in a capsule. And you take 1 red, 1 green per day. The last thing is, just because we're speaking about soil and the earth, look down, look at your soil, play with the dirt, feel the dirt, take off your shoes, walk through your grass, and always, always look up. People forget to look up. Our sky is beautiful, whether it's blue or gray. The stars are always out. Start to look up. You'll see a bird, you'll see a tree, you'll see a nest. So don't walk with your head down. Walk with your head and really embrace it all, from soil to the skies. And just really thank God. I always end with really thank God for all of you and for us sharing everything with everyone who's listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do want to, Dr. Roxanne, Dr. Mike, could you please give how to contact you?
Yes.
First?
Well, my office is in Ramsey, and drevangel.com. That's D-R as in doctor, and EV, and then the word angel.com. That's my website, and all my information's on there.
And your business name is?
It's Michael S. Evangel, DC, is the name of my company.
Your company, okay. Dr. Roxanne, could you give how to contact you?
Sure, it's Dr. Carfora, CARFORA.com. And you could follow me on Facebook, Dr. Roxanne, ROXANNE Carfora, and looking forward to educating everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. I look forward to the continuation because we have so much to share with everybody. The next show is going to be about farms, and then we're going to try to book a show about bees and honey, which is really important. I really want to thank both of you for your knowledge, and we miss Judy, of course, today. Judy, hello. I know you've been Facebooking me. Hello. We've had a lot of followers. We've had a lot of viewers, so that's really exciting. Dr. Mike, you're on Facebook as well.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to follow Dr. Mike on Facebook, or you can Facebook me or text me, and I will share with you both of their information. We'll put it up online later on. But I really want to thank you for your knowledge and just the way that you approach things. You do it through, just your wisdom, but really through a heartfelt education and doctors. And that's what we need in life. And I'm so honored to know both of you. So thank you so much. Thank you. Can we blow our kisses before you go?
Sure.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody. Jim will be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys can hold on for 1 second. Let Jim put it up on the screen. That's okay. Is there a photo up on the screen?
Yo no entiendo por qué tú más que nadie sabes qué pasó en mi vida. Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo. Yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to sing a little bit, just to bring a little joy and happiness and really to get into that loving place with everybody. So here we go. A little Jim Croce. Well, I know it's kind of late. Hope I didn't wake you. Know what I've got to say, can't wait. Do you understand? Every time I try to tell you, the words just came out wrong. So I have to say I love you in a song. Yeah, I know it's kind of strange. Every time I hear you, I just run out of things to say. Do you understand? Every time I try to tell you, the words just get out wrong. And so I have to say I love you in a song. Let's feel the beat, everybody. Come on. Every time I thought I was right, all the words just came out wrong. So I have to say I love you in a song. That's cute. Let's go. Yeah, I know it's kind of late. Hope I didn't wake you. But there's something that I just gotta say. Please understand. Every time I try to tell you, the words just came out wrong. So I have to say I love you in a song. A little Sunday morning concert. That's the little piano. And I never thought I'd feel this way. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad I got the chance to say that I do believe I love you. And if we should ever go away, well then close your eyes and try to feel the way you do today. And then if you can remember, please join me. Come on, keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. For good times and bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Well, you came and opened me, and now there's so much more I see. And so, by the way, I thank you and I did for the times when we're apart. When I close your eyes and know the words are coming from my heart. And then if you can remember, please join me. Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. For good times And that time I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for good times and bad times. I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for good times and bad times. I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. That's what friends are for. This is honor my grandmother. Please join me. I will come to you in the silence. I will lift you from all your fears. You will hear my voice. I claim you as my child. Be still and know I am near. I am hopeful who are hopeless. I am light for all to see. In the shadows of the night, I will be light. Come and rest in me. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am strength for all who despairing, healing for the ones who dwell in shame. All the blind will see, the lame will run free, and all will know my name. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am the voice that leads all to freedom.
waiting for the one to dwell in shade. I will call your name, embracing all your pain. Stand up now and do not be afraid. I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me. I will bring you. I love you. Let's go to that series. And please don't forget our telethon. Telethon will be running the Village Connection on October 5th. And I can just sit around making music all day long. As long as I'm making my music, I can't do nobody wrong. And who knows, maybe someday I'll come on with a song that makes people want to stop the fuss and fight just long enough to sing on. Let's go, Julie, come on. I believe in music, and I believe in love. That's it. Music is love, and love is music, if you know what I mean. And people who believe in music are the happiest people I've ever seen. So clap your hands, stomp your feet, and shake your tambourine. Lift your voices to the sky. God loves it when you sing. Let's go! I believe in music, and I believe in love. One more time, let's go. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. That's it. Music is a universal language, and love is the key to find brotherhood, peace, and understanding, and living in harmony. So take your brother by the hand and sing along with me. Find out what it really means to be young and rich and free. Let's go! I believe in music, and I believe in love. That's it. One more time. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. Let's go, everybody. Come on. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. One more song, Tim, and we're out. I believe in music. Lord knows that I believe in love. One more song, Jim. Let's go, buddy. Here we go. Day by day by day, oh, the Lord, three things I pray. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day. Let's go, everybody. Come on, join me. Day by day, day by day. Oh, dear Lord, these things I pray. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day. Let's go, everybody, join me. Come on, pick them up, those up. Day by day, come on. Day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray. Let's go, pick your souls up, let's go. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, be more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, build me more nearly, day by day. Let's go, come on. Day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray. To see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly. Let's go. Follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day by day by day. Jim, can we do one more? Do we have time? An encore? Thank you, Jim. Here we go. Everybody can join me on this one. Here we go. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little love. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides and not to climb. There are oceans and rivers and not to cross and not to last. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and wheat fields and not to climb. There are sunbeams and moonbeams and not to cross, and not to last till the end of time. Is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
No, not just for some, but for everyone. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, my board. Thank you to everybody. Jim, can you show yourself on the screen? Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day. Be kind to one another. Love one another. Life is good.
Yo no entiendo por qué tú más que nadie sabes qué pasó en mi vida. Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Y es tan difícil para mí y para ti. Dios, ¿qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar.